Some noise is there. Okay. Respected head of the department, Dr. Mohammed Sajid, Dean Research of Tkmce, Dr. Shafi K, Professor Feroz, coordinator of this program, and dear participants. Artificial intelligence and Internet of Things are going to cause huge implications in the field of technology within the next 15 years. Internet is entering into each and every part of human life, which increases chances of cybercrimes. Thus, it is important to be very cautious about the use of technology during this technological era. A teacher should become a cyber ambassador so that he can make people aware about the threats and cybersecurity. Cybersecurity personnel are asking teachers to perform this role. Keeping need of cybersecurity awareness in mind, TKM College of Engineering Kollam is organizing a one-week faculty development program on cybersecurity under the scheme AICTE Training and Learning Atal, which is sponsored by AICTE, Government of India. Duration of this FTP is from 28/12/2020 today to 1/1/2021, in which various experts from cybersecurity domain are going to provide critical information and guidance to the participants. The importance of cybersecurity shall be elaborated with the help of practical examples too. Focus will be made on different types of crimes in cyber field, need of cybersecurity, etc. also. From the 250 registered participants from various educational institutions and other organizations throughout the nation, approval is given only to selected 200 participants based on the rules and regulations laid down by Atal. A brief overview of the course shall be given now. Today, after the inaugural function, Pavan Kumar C. from the Indian Institute of Information Technology, Dharwad, will give a presentation on security concerns and risk management in information systems, followed by engineer Manishankar P. from Mercedes-Benz on the topic machine learning in cybersecurity. And later in the evening, Dr. J. Bhuvana from SSN College of Engineering, Kalavakkam, on the topic cryptography and information security. Tomorrow, the first session will be handled by Dr. Rajendra Hegadi from the Indian Institute of Information Technology, Dharwad, on the topic Ethereum blockchain, followed by engineer Ashwini S. Infosys Bangalore on the topic Introduction to Cybersecurity Concepts, and then by Mrs. Rohini Srinivasan, yoga trainer, on the topic Yoga Practice in Our Daily Life. On Wednesday, engineer Chandrasekhar Gale from Great Wall, India, will give a presentation on a look into security of robotics and AV, followed by Dr. Rahul Johari, USICT, GGSIP, University of Delhi, on University Delhi on security framework, study and simulation of cryptographic techniques with hands-on simulation using Java cryptography architecture. And then in the afternoon, Dr. Alvin Roshan Pais from NIT Surathkal on the topic Introduction to Cryptography. On Thursday, the morning sessions will be handled by Dr. Arun Tigadi, KLECET Belgaum, on cybersecurity issues and challenges in CAVs, and Dr. Saraswati from SSN College of Engineering, Kalavakkam, on the topic web security. The afternoon session will be handled by Dr. Ravi Kumar MG from Reva University, Bangalore, on the topic Introduction to Network Function Virtualization. On the last day, Friday, the morning sessions will be handled by Dr. G. Aruna from the Indian Institute of Information Technology, Guwahati, on the topic Cyber Security in Wireless Communications, and Dr. Pramod from TKMce Kollam on the topic Industrial Cybersecurity and IIoT. We shall have an examination on the topics discussed in the afternoon, and finally end the program with the valedictory function. With these words, let me welcome all the dignitaries and participants. Dr. Mohammed Sajid, HOD, Department of Mechanical Engineering, TKM, and support for all departmental activities happening now. I welcome you, sir, to this AICTE-sponsored Atal FTP program.
Thank you.
I also welcome Dr. K. Shafi, Dean Research of Tkmce, who is a helping hand for all the research activities happening right now at TKM College of Engineering. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Atal.
I welcome Professor Firoz, the coordinator of the program, to this function. Finally, I welcome all the participants who have gathered to attend this program from all around the country to this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi.
Now I invite Dr. N.K. Mohammed Sajid, Head of the Department of Mechanical Engineering, to deliver the inaugural address. So please.
Respected head of departments, Dr. Shafi, Dean Research, Dr. Rebroy, Professor Firoz, coordinators of the program, faculty members, and participants. Good morning and a very warm welcome to all of you for the 5-day Atal FDP on cyber security. First, let me give a brief introduction about our college. Our college, government-aided college in Kerala. The college is the first and foremost institution for technical education run by the TKM Educational Trust. The foundation stone of the college was laid in the year 1956 by Dr. Rajendra Prasad, the first president of independent India, and was formally inaugurated by Professor Humayun Kabir, the then Minister for Scientific and Cultural Affairs, Government of India, on 3rd July 1958. Today, the institution is offering courses in 8 branches of engineering at UG level, 10 MTech programs, and also an approved QA. All eligible programs in the college are accredited by NBA. Among them, BTech Mechanical Engineering and Civil Engineering programs have got a status of 6-year accreditation. The college is also accredited by NAC with A grade. Now, this FDP is an ACT training and learning, that is adult sponsored FDP. This program is an interdisciplinary program. Now, the aim of the faculty interaction with eminent personalities from industries and academics. The knowledge sharing will improve the teaching learning process to the students and will benefit the society. Cybersecurity focuses on protecting computers, networks, programs, and data from unintended or unauthorized access, change, or destruction. Artificial intelligence and Internet of Things are going to cause huge implications in the field of technology within the next few years. Internet is entering into each and every part of human life, which increases chances of cyber crimes. Thus, it is important to be very cautious about the use of technology during this technological area. The objective of this FDP is to enhance the vision of the faculty members and research scholars by exposing them to the recent developments that are taking place in cyber security. The FDP is designed to provide a platform to participants to learn the basics, applications, and role of big data analytics and cybersecurity. The coordinators have meticulously selected eminent resource persons from industry and academia to talk and interact with the participants in the FDP. Duration of this FDP is from 28/12/2020 to 1/12/2020, in which the various experts from cybersecurity domain are going to provide hands-on experience to the participants. Since teaching is a noble profession, teachers should always keep abreast of recent trends and technologies and emerging areas. Participation of faculties in these kinds of FDPs will help to update the knowledge in thrust areas to meet the requirements of the industry as well as the students. Now I congratulate the coordinators, Dr. Reberoy and Professor Firoz, for arranging and coordinating the FDP on cybersecurity. And I welcome all the participants to this program. Now with these few words, I conclude and declare the program inaugurated. I wish all success to the program. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to invite Dr. Shafi K, the Dean Research of Tkmce College of Engineering, to deliver the felicitation. Sir.
Thank you. Respected Head of the Department of Mechanical Engineering, Dr. N.K. Mohammed Sajid, Heads of various departments, professors, colleagues, and dear participants, warm good morning to all. The duty entrusted upon me today is to offer felicitation to the Faculty Development Program organized by Department of Mechanical Engineering on cyber security under the ICT Training and Learning Academy. As all we know, cybersecurity is one of the trust areas in the era of internet technology. But I'm very proud and happy to say that Department of Mechanical Engineering is always in the forefront in taking up new initiatives. Why I'm saying like this is, we are having a notion that cybersecurity is an area that is mainly related with computer science. But the coordinators of this FCP have scheduled a different session in a mechanical engineering course. Cybersecurity is gaining popularity in the field of autonomous vehicles, which collect information, senses the environment, and manage communication with other vehicles. I'm so happy to see that coordinators have selected eminent personalities in this field as associates. I would like to congratulate the organizers of this faculty development program, Dr. K. Reberoy and Professor Firoz, for selecting such a relevant topic for this FCC. I would also like to appreciate all the participants who have rightly chosen this core topic. I'm quite sure that we all will be benefited by attending a different session. I wish all success to this program. Once again, and thank you one and all. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. So it gives an immense pleasure to propose a vote of thanks for this inaugural ceremony. First of all, I would like to thank our head of the department, Dr. N.K. Mohammed Sajid, for giving us valuable guidance and support for organizing this workshop. And Dr. Shafi K, the Dean Research, I would like to thank him for delivering the felicitation address for our program. And also I thank Dr. Reberoy for supporting me too for conducting this workshop. And also I would like to thank our principal, Dr. Shahul Hamid, for the immense support and the guidance to conduct this workshop. And last but not the least, I would like to thank all the participants for registering in our workshops. And I hope everyone will be having a valuable sessions over the 5 days. And see you all in the sessions. I hope everyone will be participating in all the sessions. And thank you all. Now I think we will start the first session by within 5 minutes. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you. Has Dr. Pavan Kumar joined?
Oh, yes, sir, I'm here.
Yes. So, shall we start now?
Yeah, we can start.
Yes. Okay, good morning again. The first session will be handled by Dr. Pavan Kumar C. He is actually a faculty in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering in the Indian Institute of Information Technology, Dharwad, Karnataka. This institution is actually an institution of national importance, as all of us know. Dr. Pavan Kumar C has done his PhD from Vellore Institute of Technology, Vellore, in the area of reliable and secure data communication. He has published papers in journals and conferences of international repute and his areas of research that includes coding theory, data communication, formal languages and automata theory, cryptography, and applied mathematics. In addition, he is also on the technical program committees on various committees in conferences in India and abroad. He is also a senior member of IEEE. With these words, I invite Dr. Pavan Kumar C. to handle the present session. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, sir. And also, thank you very much for inviting me. So, to give a brief introduction to our institute, Indian Institute of Information Technology, Dharwad, is an institute of national importance, which is established under the Ministry of Education. We presently offer BTech programs in computer science and engineering, electronics and communication engineering, and also data science and artificial intelligence, in addition to the PhD program. And also we offer some of the internship opportunities also. If you have any good student, I request all of you to we can write to particular faculty members, and then you can get the information on that. And also it is my pleasure to deliver a talk at Tkmce College of Engineering, Kollam, whose foundation stone was led by Dr. Babu Rajendra Prasad, who was the first president of India. And also it is also, and also Professor Humayun Kabir was associated with such an institution. It's my pleasure. So to coming to the today's talk, what I will do is I will divide it into two to three parts. In the first part, I will talk about what are the industrial problems which are there and which are relevant in the present day context. And then we will see what are the measures we can use to overcome that. So since it's an first talk of the FDP, I just want to give an overview how this cyber security plays a role in the case of industry, and then we will start with our regular discussion. So first, let me share my screen. Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I just want to, yeah. Okay. So for the benefits of the participant, I will just stop the video so that we can start with the presentation. Yeah, right. Is the screen is visible properly, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. To start with, I will divide my talk into 2 to 3 parts, as I told earlier. First, we'll see what are the industrial applications of security, and then network, and then OS, network and OS security controls, hardware and software security controls. What are the things we can adopt in our day-to-day activities so that we are not affected or we are not the victims of some of the cybersecurity things, right? So to give an overview, what exactly this cybersecurity is, cybersecurity is the availability, integrity. One second. So to give an overview, so cybersecurity means this is availability, integrity, and secrecy of information systems and networks in the face of attacks, accident, and failures, with the goal of protecting operations and assets. So if you clearly observe the definition of this cybersecurity given by the US National Cybersecurity, you can observe that it is not only the assets. That means assets in the sense now you are having some of the data in your data disk or something encrypted at some place. It is not the only way, right? Even securing or protecting the operations, that is also of important. Operations in the sense, now you communicate with your Gmail, like you will log in into your Gmail account and access your files, right? They're all the operations which you perform on the network. So even all those things has to be secure, so that it is not, and we are not victim of any of this. So the important aspects of the cybersecurity is guaranteeing the availability, integrity, and secrecy of the information systems and also the networks, right? With this, what exactly can be done? So coming to the point of the corporate cybersecurity, how it is different in the context of corporate cybersecurity. So previously we have just seen a cybersecurity, availability, integrity, and secrecy of information systems and networks prone to the attack. We should be prone, or we should be resistant against the attacks, accidents, and then failures. Now coming to the point of the corporate security, how it is different. See, it is just in the case of the cyber security, is a broad term which covers all the other aspects. Whereas in the case of the corporate cyber security, it is a corporation's operations and then assets. Like for example, if you see, like if you're an industry person or working from home, then what will actually happen is like you will be connecting through the VPN and accessing the resources of a given company. But when you are using that, so we should make sure that your whatever the assets are there and whatever the information which is there on the cloud or wherever, it should be accessed in a secured manner and it should not be like accessed by someone else. So what exactly is the national cybersecurity? So in the same aspect, it depends on a nation's operations and then assets. Now you can imagine how big it is to have a national cybersecurity wherein an entire country's data has to be stored and its operations has to be stored. Operations in the sense any kind of an operation in the process. Like it's not only dependent on a person's right entire system. It's like we will save our data at some data centers and also like our government will save some data at some other places. So we need to make sure that none of our resources are compromised, right? Now, the next question is, how do we achieve this cybersecurity as a discipline, right? So how do we overcome the cybersecurity problem? So like the four factors that play into the cybersecurity equation are, one is the technology which we are going to use so that that will make sure that only the legitimate person will have access to the resources and no one else. And also like we may see some of these algorithms, right? Some people will talk about SHA, SHA2, SHA3 and so on. Similarly, there are like cryptographies as private key cryptography and also so that is also called as symmetric key cryptography. If time permits, I will just give an overview. And also asymmetric type cryptography and also like zero knowledge proofs and all those things will play a role in the technology. And at the same time, it will also make sure that we need to make sure of the economic part of this. So that like if you want to save some data, we should not invest so much that the cost of the safety is not overcoming the exact data price. That means like now suppose that we are having some photos of ours and stored it in some data what to say, we can save it at some data center. Now the economy should be such that the cost of the data center should not be very high. It should be always like viable and then economical for both the stakeholders. Like who are the stakeholders here? Like the person who is keeping the data as well as for the person who is providing that service. And also like what are the social influences it is having, right? So social influences in the sense like if you have the big brother peers, it means that if someone is someone is watching us continuously, these are all the kind of called as big brother peers. And also like the public policy thing is another equation that has been added to the cyber security in the recent times. What exactly this public policy thing means is like now your data, we are in Indian subcontinent. Now can our data be stored in some other part of the country? Are we okay with that? Or like we need to make sure that our country, the data of our country will be there within the boundaries of this country. Given the internet, we don't know where exactly our data will be stored. But how do we make sure that such kind of things do exist and also we are not the victims of any of the techniques? So the major factors that plays in the cybersecurity equations are, one is technology, which we are going to use. So this may change over a period of time to adopt to the new challenges. So to give a brief, what to say, in a vague sense, if I tell you like how exactly the cybersecurity tools and techniques have evolved over a period of time is, it's a game. Like you will have some of the intruders and also like there will be people who will be protecting. So intruders will go on giving new challenges in the form of new threats, in the form of new viruses, and in the form of new worms and all those things which are called in the cybersecurity terminology. Now, the protectors have to protect our assets in such a way that by going on providing counterattacks for such attacks. So it's always a game wherein the intruder or the attacker will give you a new challenge. We need to solve it and we need to overcome it. Like some of the challenges we have seen in the recently are the ransomware and all those things are some of these challenges, right? So the internet is hard to secure. The challenge is why it is very hard to secure is it is extremely complex. That is fine thing. And we all know that like how exactly every device connected to the internet is having an IP address. So we should make sure that like whatever been connected to the internet. Now with the addition of the IoT, Internet of Things, and the cyber physical system, it has been very difficult. Even the tiny devices have been connected to the internet. For example, like some of the things like sensor nodes or anything, they have been connected. Now, how do we make sure that everything how do we make sure that everything has been controlled and nothing has been hacked? So if one who is not legitimate user, legitimate in the sense the person who is having the right to access the data, not legitimate user is like the one who is not been able to access the data. For example, like all the faculty members are here, so I will give an example of the mark sheet. Now the legitimate users are the students, right? They should be able to get the data of marks what they have got. At the same time, we should make sure that the others will not get to access those data. And also our personal records. Like we may not be comfortable in sharing our details with everyone. What's my salary, what's my bank account details, and all those things. But at the same time, we should make sure that the person who is like legitimate to get that information should be able to get that. So in the case of the internet, we should make sure that we should have sufficient access control policies, and then like we should have certain roles and responsibilities for each users, so that even though the network is extremely complex, we should be able to handle the situation. And also we should make sure that the malicious users are not taking or like accessing the resources which they're not supposed to do it. So these are some of the challenges we are aware in our day-to-day life. So why cyber security is important for the industrial applications, right? So if I take an example of the automation of systems in the buildings, right? So it will consist of various sensors and controllers to manage. So if you see this image, it will have a lot of things which have been automated. So this is one of the typical scenario where you will have the large chimneys that will be like what do you say, leave some of the government, and also like some of the large control systems, they will be present in the given scenario. Now, for example, which are the normal things which do exist in such cases, right? So, say, very elevators, ventilators, heating appliances, and then lighting, electricity, water supply, video surveillance, alarm system, fire extinguishing systems, etc. Right? So this will have sensors as well as the controllers to manage these things. So one simple example I will give you with the case of the elevators, right? So if your elevator is connected to the internet, and if you will make sure that you want to go up, and by mistake someone controls you from the outside with the help of a network, and he tries to send you down. So in that case, what will happen, right? In that case, there will be a panic situation. That means like your system has been compromised. Similarly, video surveillance, you might have seen in various movies how they can attack your system and get capture or hold of the things, and how they can do the certain things. So if you get one idea I can give you, like if you want to see how exactly these kind of attacks do happen, so if you are a fan of Die Hard series movies, so see a movie Die Hard 4. So it has a lot of things like how this cyber security can be a threat in the coming years. So like these are all the critical resources because we are dependent on multiple things. So one is hospitals, shopping malls, prisons, industrial production, public transport, and other places. So if you see the present day scenario, you can envision that wherever you see there are cameras, wherever you see there will be some sort of hacks going on, or like someone will try to hack our bank accounts, or someone will try to access our emails. So one or the other person will be an victim of these attacks. Like whether the successful attack or the failure attacks, like it depends on our behavior as well. That also I will talk briefly how we can overcome all those things. So these are the major challenges because every sensors and the controllers that are associated with this industrial systems will be associated with some or the other operations. For example, control system. If we want to stop production at particular point, it should stop the machine. But instead, if it will do the reverse, then you can imagine what kind of panicness and a security threat it can bring into. Right. So this will be a typical scenario in the case of a large organization. So this has been borrowed from the NIST Smart Grid page, even though it is for the smart grid, even if you take any of the applications, right? So that will have this in general as its core. So there will be a lot of devices that will be connected to the wide area networks. There will be some data collector nodes, and then there will be some of the end nodes, and all those things will be there in the place. Now, how do we make sure that this entire backbone has been protected? Like the consumer or like who are trying to apply or get the access to these things will not be knowing what exactly is happening inside. But we should make sure that customer will get or the consumer will get what exactly he is intended to get it. So these are all the like industrial scenario wherein depending on the customization, it will change. Like depending on the domain, depending on the application, whether it's a manufacturing unit or exactly it is just an service provider company, all these things will do exist. But at the same time, we should make sure that only the legitimate users will get access to the resources and no one else. So this is the like what do you say, major thing in any of the systems. So in this scenario, we can see that the SCADA systems are been connected. SCADA is like supervisory controller and control and then data acquisition. What it will do in the large systems is it will try to gain some data from the sensors and the other associated devices which the consumers will interact, and then it will give back, or we can control it based on certain conditions. Now imagine a situation, this is an industrial scale. Now imagine a situation, you have a coffee maker at home. Now that is connected to the internet. Imagine a situation, we are not at home and someone is remotely accessing that and doing some coffee, right? That means that is a compromise of a system wherein our system has been compromised and someone is doing that task. For example, even if you take our mobile phones, right, which we are using in our day-to-day life. For example, we are using Android phones. Now, how much it is vulnerable to some of these attacks, we need to even check. If someone is reading our messages or like they are accessing our gallery and getting the photos, right? In such cases, how do we define some of the countermeasures so that we are not victims of any of this, right? If you see the malware and the target system, this will give a picture where exactly this targets or geographical distribution of threats are there. For example, if you see this figure, the red has been a high prone area, whereas in this they're in lighter colors, they're not prone or the lesser prone. So you can see that the India and also some part of the Russia and all are more vulnerable, and also in some parts of the South America, they are more vulnerable. And at the same time, like if you see the Greenland, it is not vulnerable. But even though this statistics give some sort of a vague thing to understand what kind of attacks and where exactly the attacks are more, at the same time, we should make sure that the population there is very limited, right? If you take even the Australia, there also like population is limited. So the people who are trying to access or hack the systems are less. But in a country like India, where we are having the largest softwares running like IRCTC and all, like therein the attackers will try to attack those systems and get the things done. So like given that landscape of the attacks and the threats, we should design some of these things such that they are not prone to such attacks. So this is an example of an home automation system which has been captured, and we have seen that this kind of do exist. So what are the sources of threats to the building-based automation system? From the Kaspersky's data of the last year, like what it says is the home automation system is having something like internet. It is 26% of the home automation systems have been like attacked over the internet, and also like 24% based on the like for the industrial system. Similarly, from the removable media and then the email clients and then the network folders, these are the risk chances. So the majority of the risk or the threat is coming from the internet, and at the same time from the email clients, because removable media is nowadays very limited because everyone is restricting the services of the removable media. But email clients are increasing day by day, wherein like we will be sent with some of the links, and by mistake we will be clicking on that. So our data will be given to them. It is like some sort of a penetration to our system. So someone is foreign to our system, gets a penetration and then get the data. Similarly, this is by the a type of the malware detected in the home-based automation system. So we can see that the spyware and then the worms, phishing attack, and then the ransom attacks. So to give just an spyware, what it will do is give an overview of spyware. What it will do is it will take care and then take care of our systems. Once it is infected, it will like monitor our system without our knowledge and send this information to someone who is present outside our organization. That means in the same way it is spying our things. Similarly, worms are doing the same way in some other fashion. What these worms will do is they will try to infect our file systems and the other resources which are in our computer, and then make sure that some of these important data files have been deleted. Similarly, in the case of the phishing attack, what will happen is some of the links sent through the email and other things, we will be by mistaking on them and we will become the victims of such attacks. The ransom is the most thing, like in the recent thing we have come across, wherein people will attack our machines and then in return for releasing the resources, they will demand the money in the case of the ransom attacks. Whereas in the case of the phishing attacks, in the earlier days, they used to send the SMS and all those things. Nowadays, the major threat in the phishing attacks is through email and then through the WhatsApp messages, because the people have started using less of an SMS. But still, there are chances that in the SMS, you will get sometimes some message saying that you have got a lottery, click on this link or give your details and all. Be careful, don't provide any such information. So they will be mainly to target our things, right? So this is the percentage of ICS computers on which this malicious, what do you say, kind of attacks were found. So ICS is the industrial control systems on which we can see that like how this attacks were being done. So here also we can make sure that, or we can see that majority of the attacks were done on the countries which are there in the Asia, like particularly India and also some portion of Russia, and also Greenland. They projected as safe, even though the one of the things, maybe the reason is like the population is less, but that is not the criteria. Like if you see the statistics, so the malicious objects that were detected during the H2 release were the Vietnam, Algeria, and Tunisia. They have the highest scores. The most secure countries are like Ireland, Switzerland, Denmark, Hong Kong. All these countries on the other side, they have very limited population. So like when the users are more, there are the chances that they are prone to attacks. So what we can conclude from this is like the phishing kind of attacks are the main vector of the targeted attacks on the industrial company. So if you are like at the majority at the gateway itself, some of these attacks will be filtered. But at the same time, we should make sure that like whatever we receive, even after by filtering by the gateway and then the spam folders and all those things, we should make sure that our information will not be compromised, right? Also, like all types of the malware often show up in the phishing emails sent to the industrial enterprises. And malicious attachments from the phishing emails pose a danger not only to the office computers, but also to the computers in the industrial infrastructure. That means if you click on some emails, it will not only spoil that computer, it will also spoil the entire network of computers that are connected to that. So it is called as, how to say, like the payloads. If you see the penetration testing, what they will do is they will create some reverse TCP connection, wherein if you click on a particular link, it will establish a TCP connection or a reverse TCP connection like a payload and a target. So the reverse TCP connection, what it will do is whatever you are doing on your computer will be remotely controlled or remotely monitored from another computer. So always make sure that we are not victims of any of the such things. So nowadays, like everyone is talking about the cloud computing, right? So there are 8 major threats that users encounter while transferring to and saving the data in the cloud, right? So one of the major, am I audible or problem was there?
You are audible, sir.
You are audible, sir. Audible.
Audible, sir.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Like I thought like someone is talking something. Yeah, fine. Now like there are majorly 8 threats that are encountered by transferring data or to or saving the data in the cloud. That is like handling of data with a third party. We don't know who are the cloud service providers. We are believing in some service provider and storing our data onto the cloud, right? But we don't know what exactly they will do with our data. That is the one thing, right? And the other thing is, like, how do they have the access to our data? The biggest question mark everyone is having is, does Gmail read our data, or like Yahoo Mail read our data, right? Now, how do we make sure that they are not reading our data? Many people argue that what we can do is we can encrypt the data and keep it. But at the same time, if we keep encrypted data, the challenge is like we need to decrypt and get the information which we have kept. So in the process of encryption and decryption, we will reveal what exactly our passwords are and what exactly the data is. So how do we handle that? So these are all the threats that our cloud users will encounter. So handling of data by the third party, like when we are giving onto the cloud, we should make sure that the cloud will not misuse it. So don't go into any of the service providers who provide the service or the storage space at a cheaper price, but make sure that are they reliable service providers. That is very important, because like if you are keeping our data, sensitive data at some places, there may be chances that they may be misused. And also the another thing is, we should make sure that they are not prone to the cyber attacks. See, cyber attacks are any kind of the attacks arising out of our data which is stored onto the, it is not only the data stored onto the cloud, at the same time we should make sure that our resources or the data saved in the cloud is accessible all the time to us. We should not get an outage saying that your data is not accessible or some other. So we should make sure that our data is prone also to the cyber attacks. Or the cloud service provider in turn should make sure that our data is not been compromised or whatever. See, even though these things are looks very similar or very simple in seeing the names, but achieving them like with the help of the cryptography and all other techniques is very hard, right? Like some of the things people are nowadays using is the homomorphic encryptions, wherein like or whatever the computer they do will be doing on the encrypted data. That is one way. Like, but what are the challenges associated with that? So those are the things have to be addressed. And the other thing is the insider threats. When we are having the large organizations, there will be at various places. What to happen is like there are the people who are inside the organization who will try to access these resources. So we should make sure that only the legitimate person should be allowed to have the data. And also the name, as the cloud suggests, the multiple people will be holding their data onto the cloud or storing their data onto the cloud. So I should be able to get what is my portion of data. I should not able to get the other portion of data. So all those things have to have the strict access control policies defined so that the insider threats can be mitigated. The mitigation is a technique wherein like whatever the attacks are there, we are nullifying those. So insider threats have to be overcome. So one of the insider threat is like accessing the other person's data, or the cloud owner itself is trying to access our data. So how do we ensure that that thing not happens? One is like encryption technique, but at the same time, like if the owner of the cloud get the encrypted data, can we decrypt it with some sort of a knowledge of a reply attack or whatever? Like how do we overcome that? So there are various techniques defined in the literature, like attribute based encryption schemes, wherein like they will give some of the attributes to each users, wherein like each user is entitled to some of the resources. So now what are the things that can be done? And the next challenge is the government intrusion. So this is and the legal liability. These two are some of the, what do you say, like major challenges. Now the government intrusion is like a double-ended sword, whether we are liable to have our data to be accessed by the government organizations or to be not. See, there are two ways to address this problem. There is no solution for this. One thing is, like I may say, it is my own data. No one has an authority to access my data. But at the same time, at the interest of the nation, so we should give the permission for the government to access such data. But many are not comfortable in that, because like even in government, someone may misuse our data. That's the argument. And the other is the legal liability. Liability in the sense, why? Because like our country's data must be stored within our territories, right? It should not, or within our boundaries, it should not go outside it. But we don't have any framework to ensure this policies. So that is why it is called as lack of standardization. So how do we make sure that such efforts, standardization efforts are made so that only the standardized principles have been accepted to operate that support by the service providers. They may provide to our data or may not provide. And at the same time, we have the constant risk factor, which may be affecting it, which may be affecting our data. So always we will have in a dual mind or the confusion that someone is reading our data or someone is accessing our data. For example, if you have the bank accounts and assume that the bank account data is stored on some cloud, in such case, are we safe? That is the first question. One of the examples is not very much related to the cloud computing. I will tell you, one of the service providers who used to give the details of the numbers, like if someone calls you, they will provide you some information. Suppose say, like what happened is some people had saved their card numbers and the account numbers in their contact list. And one of the apps who had access to this contact had been hacked, and their data set or the database have been hacked. Then what happened is all these card details were vulnerable and it was in the hands of the hackers. What they did is like they intelligently segmented the data. So we know that the card digits are 16 digits and then followed by CVV number and then the PIN code, like some people will use it. So such kind of information we should not provide so that we will not be at the risk. So we should make sure that whatever we are connected or whenever we are connected to the internet or any of our devices are connected to the internet, we should make or we should take the utmost care such that like we are not in the process of all these things. So what are the threats? Like in cloud computing, various network intrusion matters arise. So some of them are denial of service, man in the middle attack, network sniffing, port scanning, SQL injection attack, and cross-site scripting. So in the case of the denial of service, what exactly the denial of service is? Like now you are a legitimate user. Now you are trying to access resources on the cloud. So if you are denied to access the data which you have stored on the cloud, then it is called as a denial of service. So the denial of service can be launched by a person who is in between you and the cloud, or in between who is at the gateway of the cloud, but he has launched an attack such that you are not able to access the not having the enough credentials to access the data. So mitigating that kind of an attack is always a challenging because the cloud service provider will not understand whether it is from a legitimate source or not from a legitimate source. So like what to say, categorizing or like classifying a legitimate user and a non-legitimate user in such cases will become difficult. So one of the things that is denial of service. And at the same time, man in the middle attack is like now two persons are communicating, person A and person B. So person A sends a message to the person B and B in turn sends a A. If there is no man in the middle who is not trying to modify the data, then A and B will communicate or exchange the messages properly. So if anyone is there in the middle, then he may be a passive attacker or maybe an active attacker. What a passive attacker will do is he will just listen to the communication. Assume that as I gave the example of A and B, A sends a message to B saying that meet me at some park at 5 o'clock. What this man in the middle will do is, if he is an passive attacker, he will understand that message and he will keep quiet. He will not do anything. He will just read that communication or listen to that communication. But if it is an active attacker, what he will do is meet me at some park at 7 o'clock. Instead of 5 o'clock, I will just change the details so that the legitimate users are misguided. So such kind of attacks are called as man in the middle attack. A person who is sitting in between any communication, any point-to-point communication, for example, between you and the cloud or you and the other person, and he tries to listen to the communication or he tries to change the content of the communication, is part of the man in the middle attack. Similarly, network sniffing, what the attacker will do is he will try to identify patterns among the communication scenarios that happening between the persons involved or the entities involved in the network. He will try to sniff the packets from where to where it is going. So can I do some kind of attack on this thing so that the legitimate users or some kind of attacks can be launched so that the legitimate users are affected. So network sniffing is, even though it appears to be a simple thing, nowadays the people have started even sniffing the packets which are in encrypted format to get access to the data. See, the data, whether it is relevant or irrelevant, is secondary. But if it is a sensitive information, in such case, how do we overcome this attack? So someone earlier days, they used to say jokingly that if you want to keep the data communication secure, then don't communicate at all. But in the present day scenario, it is not possible. We need to communicate, but at the same time, we should make sure that our data is not at risk. So other thing is the port scanning. So this port scanning is like this. To give an example, one of the most used port in our communication is the 8080 port. If you are from computer science background, you may have an overview of that the port commonly used is the 8080 port. So what the attackers will do is, the attackers will try to gain the access to this particular port 8080 and try to communicate with the target machine. So like now I will launch a reverse TCP connection, for example, then I will take one of the ports as my remote machine's port and try to communicate with that machine with that port. So we should always make sure that if you are having any ports which are not been used on our communication, we need to close those ports on the internet. They may have the access to the FTP, the file transfer protocol, or the any of the protocols, and then they can launch the attack. So we should make sure that the port scanning is disabled most of the time. So the Windows, if you have with some like any kind of an malware detection software or antivirus, it will make sure that all the ports are closed and they are not accessible to the attackers. But if you are using some sort of the Linux machines or some flavors of the Linux machines, some of the ports may be open without your knowledge or without our knowledge. We should make sure that such ports are closed. And next is the SQL injection attack, wherein like this attack is, even though it is a kind of an attack, where exactly what will happen is, suppose you have some data in the database, the data will be deleted or modified, or it will be like retrieved without the consent. Suppose now in the case of the earlier DBMS, that is the relational databases, which were using the queries or the structured query languages, if you write a query in such a fashion such that it will reveal the information which the users are not intended to, that is one kind of an attack. In the other way, like if someone tries to delete the content of the database, right? So all these kind of things will come to an SQL injection attack. Now, suppose a person is trying to access some data that is stored in the database with the help of a web browser. He will inject some query into the database such that at a later point, it will launch an attack. Like it need not be launching an attack at the same time, but after some time, if it launches an attack, then there may be threats like it can delete or modify or even retrieve the data, whatever the valuable information that has been retrieved, right, from the regular usage. That kind of an attack is called as an SQL injection, right? Similarly, like cross-site scripting and all those things are there. So what should be the security objectives of the cloud information, right? So one thing is, the first thing is the reliability. So the connection should be reliable enough that the data which has been stored, or like whatever the information that we stored onto the cloud, should be accessible to us whenever we require it, right? So we should not say that like come at 5 o'clock and get your data. That is not the thing, right? So in the case of this reliability, we should always always the provider should be reliable enough to provide us the data which we have stored on them. And at the same time, secrecy, like as we know, it has to make sure that the cloud will not interfere with our data. Like it should not modify the data, and also it should be available to us whenever we require. And also like intellectual property rights, if it has been like intellectual property data, it should not be, it should be make sure that the cloud computing or the cloud service provider will not access the data, or like he will not give this data to someone else. For example, like I will give you this Coca-Cola example. In this formula, the secret formula of making Coca-Cola or Pepsi, I don't remember exactly, they have kept it at some locker which has not been accessible to anyone, so that they have kept that as a secret. Similarly, the cloud should provide this thing such that the intellectual IPR should be protected, such that nothing will be uh, retrieved other than what the user has been intended to. Similarly, secrecy and then the veracity is the accuracy of the information. Whatever our information is there, it should be accurate and it should not be modified in any way. And also accessibility, it can be achieved by, accessibility can be achieved in various ways. One of the ways of achieving this is by giving or having the strong access control policies, wherein the users intended to receive this will only have the access. I will give an example. I will try to relate with an hospital management system. Suppose the hospital's data is stored somewhere. Like now the doctor who is treating you should have the information about you, like what is your disease and what exactly the diagnosis can be given and what is the medicine prescribed. So at the same time, he should not have any background, whether like what is your financial income or what kind of insurance you are having. So that affects the treatment scenario. At the same time, like if you are having a health insurance, the insurance person should not see what are the personal details or what kind of the diseases you are having. He should not have the complete details. He should get only the limited information what he is supposed to get. And at the same time, if a nurse or a person who is giving you medicines on time, or if he is a physiotherapist or someone, he should also give an information, or he should get the access to the information what he is intended to. He should not get any more information. So you can assume like what kind of the complexity do exist in this and how we can overcome that. The encryption is also can be provided such that people thought that if you keep the data in the encrypted format on the cloud, maybe one of the ways to securely keep the data. But think of a challenge or a situation. If your encryption also available on the cloud, then what is the use, right? It is similar to like locking your home and then keeping the key within the premises of your home. So someone come and searches and get the lock and is open. Right? So these kind of challenges do exist. So what are the tools are used in the cloud security? So there are Alice, White Hat Security, Okta, Proofpoint, Zscaler, Doc Tracker, Vaultive. These are all the tools that are used extensively in cloud security. So each will provide some sort of a security. For example, if you take the Qualys, right? Like it will take the auditing, compliance, and protection of the web services and the web application. Similarly, like one or the other things will provide the services. Qualys is a California-based company that will provide cloud security, compliances, and those kind of services. Right? So what are the design principles that can be adopted to make this cloud computing secure? So this will be like, even though I have restricted it to the cloud computing, it is not only this cloud computing specific. Whatever you are going to design in a communication system, or like if you want to establish a system wherein like the securities of the IoT, you can adopt this principle. So least privileges should be given to a user. So like if you are an organization, then we should make sure that the least privilege should be given to a person. Higher the privileges, then there may be chances that they may misuse their privileges. So one of the principles is to give least privilege, right? So that the person who is having an access right, he is having a least authority over the data, so that even if he leaves the organization or if he is compromised in some way, then also our data or like operations are been safe. And then the separation or the segregation of duties. So all these things, like even though they appears to be very normal or simple in these cases, but when you are having the actual data, we will have the challenges. We can have this encryption and decryption, how we can, if a person, how we manage the dynamics of the people, if they leave the organization and join back, or like if they leave permanently and then some years they will try to join back, or like do we need to remove the access to them? All those things have to be properly segregated, and then we should have a plan to execute all these things. So the first thing is the least privilege. So a person who is there in the organization should be given with the least privileges, so that he will not have the control over the entire data. And then the separation of the duties, so that if there are any problems, so they will be not if the duties are separated, then they will not have any what to say, like they will not collude each other, and then they will launch an attack. So we should make sure that we also not collude in the future. So then, like, can we have a defense in depth? Defense in the sense, like, can we have at multiple checkpoints in the organization, so that every time we can make sure that we are secure. So also this should not be a single point, or it should not, the defense should not be at the only the gateway point wherein the attackers will try to see it, but we should be make sure that it is there at the multiple places, so that so it should be there at the multiple places, so that like they can execute the checks as and when required. And also we can have the layered defenses. We know that the different layers that do exist within the organizations, like management layer or the mid management layer and all those things, we can have the layered defenses. And also the security robustness is the biggest challenge, because even that involves the economic part also. This challenge is like security robustness. If you want to have it, every year, whatever the software we are having is, it may run out, or like a new attacks might have come. So we should make sure that our software, whatever we are having, it should be robust some of the attacks, so that we are not victims of. It should be keep on updated, right? So this economy also plays a role over here, because even though this cyber security appears to be very simple, it will come at a cost. So like what kind of a cost we can spend? Like a company is having 10% or 20% of its revenue or its investment on the security. That is the biggest challenge the company should like address to. And also like we should maintain like the public key or a key in management infrastructure, wherein like this whatever the data that is present will be accessed only to the legitimate users with the help of the cryptographic principles, like using the encryption or decryptions, or can we use some sort of a certificate schemes, so that what kind of a scheme is relevant in our case, so that that can be adopted, and also the legitimate information will be provided to the users, right? So we should deploy this intrusion detection system, so that like whenever an intruder enters in our system, we should ever be designed, it should work at all the times. We should not say that it will work only at a particular time, because we don't know when the attacks are going to be launched, right? So also like we need to leverage the benefits of the existing components, and like the economy of the mechanism also. We should make sure that like, okay, I will say that I will provide you the entire set of security, but if it comes at a huge cost, then it is also waste, because the organizations may not afford it. So always we should make sure that the design principles should be such that we are making use of the optimal resources and at the lesser price. So these are the things we should take care, right? And also like the following properties to be fulfilled by cloud services to be secure, we think that is, one is the authentication, and then the authorization, and then auditing, and then the accountability. So authentication, even though these words look similar, they have the different meaning. Authentication in the sense like a person you are authenticating to get into the system. But authorization is something like, do we have the authorization to view some sort of the data, or like modify some sort of the data? So this authorization will come into some sort of what you can say access control, whereas in the authentication comes into the like some sort of the access to the system or not. So like even though they look similar, but they have different meaning. And then the auditing, like auditing in the sense like whether it is we can perform the auditing over the data that is provided in the cloud, because the challenge there is like the cloud itself can be, the cloud service provider can itself be a threat to our data, right? So in such cases, we can make sure that our data is always, so that kind of an auditing is also been possible. Like another challenge or a scenario I will give you. Now, suppose you are an XYZ company, you want to keep your data onto the cloud, that is fine. But how do the people will audit it, right? So we should have some mechanism so that we can have the auditing facility also without compromising the other design principle. And also this accountability, like later, like suppose I saved some data onto the cloud, later I should not say that I have not saved that data. The cloud service provider should provide enough proof with the help of the logging tables or log tables or some sort of a log saying that no, you are the only person who have kept this data. That kind of accountability should be made things. So some of the tests like secure software testing should be performed at various levels so that we are not the part of the attacks. Like everyone will perform this stress test, load test, performance test, functional test. These are all the types of the testing. But at the same time, do we need to have any additional testing that will ensure the security aspect, right? All these things. Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
In addition to this testing, which have been done in the software testing, we should introduce the security testing at each stage so that we will not be I think some of you like, can you mute your? I don't have an option to. So if the participants, I request the participant to mute yourself. Right. Okay. Like so, if you're using the virtual machines, then also some of the security standards have been recommended for the people to use it. So, what are the security measures that can be taken by these VM users? Right? Deploy the sufficient or the good antivirus software, and then select the passwords and regularly update the operating system patches, right? And also like sustain the replicas for every mission, like whether it is a host mission or a virtual mission, and also regulate the host access from the time to time. These are some of the things we should make sure, like if we are using the virtual machine. So one of the important aspects in any of these operating systems is we should keep on updating, or like we should keep on like updating the patches or the OS so that we are not prone to some of these attacks. I'll just give an overview in some time, like how exactly we should do that. So to overcome some of the VM security issues, we should make sure that employ stronger passwords, like difficult to guess those, and also like stop the unnecessary programs which are running on our systems, especially when we are connected to the internet. We should make sure that only the processes which are authorized should be run on the system, and also like we should have the firewall so that they will they will regulate some of the people who are the intruders to our system, and also like repeatedly patch and renew
Sorry, mute. Participants have unmuted their mics.
Yeah, can you mute yourself? Okay, now let's like how do we have the network intrusions, right? So one of the thing is like if you want to have this intrusion detection system, like three kind of technology. Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah. So like the following are three key types of technologies that have been used in the intrusion detection. One is the server-based IDS, network-based, and then an integrated IDS system. So in the case of a server-based IDS, what will happen is at a single place we will be monitoring the entire network, and if someone is intruding our system, we can issue the alerts. Similarly, at the network-based operating system, we will have if multiple people are trying to access or sniff the packets, then in such cases we can make sure that we are not we can identify them and then securely mitigate those. So we should have an integrated IDS system wherein like multiple resources we will take into picture and then design and fall-proof integrated IDS, wherein if any server-based IDS or any network-based attacks are there, they can be mitigated. So these are some of the challenges in this case. So how do we have a cyber threat detection and characterization architecture, right? So today what happened is like personal privacy and the national security, it depends on protecting the cyberspace, which even did not exist way before, right? So these are some of the things. So what we should do is like when we are having a network, and if you are having an unsolicited packets or an unidentified access, if something has been identified, then we should make sure that we should capture those unsolicited packets and then like extract what kind of malicious payload they are having. We need to analyze those behaviors, and then we should detect and we should mitigate them so that we can have a programmable, observable, and reconfigurable experimental framework. So this is the main thing we should achieve. So this is our infrastructure which is running. Suppose say if some of the unsolicited packets are been identified, they have to be captured. Their behavior has to be analyzed, and then if they are the unsolicited packets, there are some payloads or some there malicious things which are trying to capture from our systems, they have to be mitigated. So like whatever may be a process which is unsolicitedly running on our system, we should make sure that we are overcoming those attacks and all those things. Now coming to another aspect of the same thing, like which I was talking about, like some of the top 10 most exploited vulnerabilities in the industrial cases, what are there. So the researchers from the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Cybersecurity have come up with some of the most exploited vulnerabilities in this industrial system. I'll just give an overview of these vulnerabilities which have been present. So like to give which are the most vulnerable software which we are using, we can see over here. So the vulnerable product was Microsoft Office 2007 in the Service Pack 3, right? And they are like how they have mitigated, they have uploaded all these Microsoft products with the latest security patches. And which are the associated malware with that, like Loki, Formbook, Pony, Ferret, all those were being the targets. And like similarly in the 2017, again the Microsoft Office was been hacked, right? And another vulnerable product after that was the Fruits, which was a web server which was been like having some of the issues or a vulnerability in the subsequent versions that has been overcome. So most vulnerable products, if you see over here, that this Microsoft Windows Vista Service Pack 2, Windows Server 2008, all this had some of these security issues. So how we had overcome that is by coming up with the new patches so that those attacks were been mitigated. Like if you see this Adobe Flash Player before like this version of 28.0.0.161, it was associated with a malware called as dog call. So it was fixed in 2018. Similarly, like there are most vulnerable softwares which have been overcome over a period of time. So these are all the top most like exploited vulnerabilities. What they will do is like they will attach some sort of an malware along with the legitimate software. So if anyone is trying to access those resources, in that case, like they will even extract like whatever the information is there on the target machine, and then keep a spy on that machines. So always we can delete some of these resources or the unwanted programs that are running on our system, right? So like what are the context of the security? Is it necessary for technology, right? Like now we have CCTV and the other biometric techniques to do this, but does it enough for providing the security? So one thing what we can do is, along with the biometric thing, we can have a multimodal biometric system or a security system wherein like multiple parameters will be used along with the biometrics, so that if any attacks or unsolicited access is there to the system, that can be avoided. That is one way of like handling this situation. And then the intelligent CCTV solution, wherein like multiple things can be combined and then provide an service, so that if any like people or anyone is trying to access our resources, that can be mitigated or that can be identified, and the concerned people can be alerted. So even though it appears to be a solution for CCTV, we can have it for an automated classification of the attack. So I think one of the speaker is talking in the next session how this machine learning can be used. So what they will do, how exactly they will classify these things into attacks, and those behaviors we can study over in that context. So how do we ensure that this technology-based security controls can be used? So one is the advanced threat protection by using like advanced antivirus tools and regularly updating our OS versions. And if there are any patches, and if the patches are available, we should make sure that we will install it on time, so that any of the malwares cannot be avoided. And also at the suppose if someone says that there's a patch for Windows, then it is always advisable to take it from the Windows website, not from some other website, because we don't know whether they're malware or not the malware. And also network and desktop forensics, and also data leakage is there, that we have to even protect. And also behavioral based analysis, like nowadays people are doing this behavioral based analysis, and they are adopting at various places. Suppose if you use the ATM machines, like people, like normally they will have a behavior. If a person is doing a transaction out of that behavior, then we may alert or trigger an alert. But at the same time, like, are we compromising on our privacy? We need to understand that, because like, why someone have a check on our activities, right? So those are all the challenges if one can address. See, it's not cybersecurity or cryptography doesn't mean always dealing with the mathematics. It will also have some of the other issues that have to be equally addressed, right? And also we can do the threat forecasting and modeling. This is a very challenging field, wherein threat forecasting and modeling is very difficult, because as I told you before, it's like a game. As and when a new game has been posed, the player has to come up with a strategy to win that game. We should not always lead or give the attacker to win the game, right? So intruder detections, and then we can use sufficient number of sensors. These are all like, even though they are there in the traditional ways of doing it with the connection of internet, we should make sure that they are not compromised, right? So which are the security technologies that can be used? One is the SSL encryption on the digital certificates, using higher encryption algorithms such as TLS, transport layer security, and all those things with newer versions, and public key infrastructure which uses the digital certificates. And then cryptography, like wherein we can use some of the cryptographic techniques to overcome some of the challenges. See, this another thing is the vulnerability assessment. This vulnerability assessment is a very difficult thing. We don't know like how we are vulnerable to some of this. So how do we overcome all those things has to be taken. So like physical security technology, this is also one of the important aspects in the case of the cyber security. Why? Because like we are only talking about this cyber security as a software business. That means the software has to provide some sort of a resistance against the software has to provide some sort of security against the attacks. But at the same time, it is equally important to have another factors that will help us in preventing the cybersecurity. They are all as follows. Like one is the restriction of the physical access. We should make sure that these resources or the machines are restricted so that only the people who are authorized to use it can only use it. And also this authentication of identity. See, in the software, we may make sure everything. But if someone is having a direct access to the machine and copy the data from that, then whatever we did will be a waste. So always we should make sure that only the person who is legitimate and who is having an access control to access those machines we should be only in control of those things. So we should always make sure that restriction of physical access has been made so that only the person who is having the access permission will access those machines. And then in which environment they are kept, whether they are network devices, whether they are accessible from somewhere, all those things we should make sure. And then authentication of the identity, anyway, that will be done at multiple stages, and verifying the access authorization and accessing the assessing the affiliation. Like sometimes, like some people who are in the client side, they may visit or like they may try to access some of these machines. They have to be monitored very properly so that our organizations are not made of or not prone to any of the insider attacks. So all these things we should make sure. So what exactly this integrated identification technology should make is like it should be national security, economy and growth require quality security technology and security management to protect the critical infrastructure of an organization. So it will be not a single person's job. It is an entire everyone's job to have a secure cyber space, right? So what are the challenges? Like as I told, some of the challenges that do exist or the vulnerabilities do exist in some of these applications. So one of the ways or some of the solutions or some of the techniques that can be employed by every one of us so that we are not we are not the victims of any attacks, that is use the application whitelisting so that only the approved programs will be running on the systems and we will download it from the legitimate sources. And also applications such as this Java, PDF viewers, Flash and web, all those things from the continuously update them so that any of the things that are there will be mitigated. And also as I told, patch the operating system vulnerabilities by downloading it from the particular websites, and also restrict administrative privileges to operating systems and applications based on the user duties. In addition, nowadays we are using smartphones which are running as an operating system. We should make sure that we are running an updated version of the OS, or it is having the patches that are updated now and then. And in addition to that, make sure that we install only the apps that are having some sort of genuineness. Don't try on installing any third-party software that have access to our gallery, that has access to contacts, everything. See, now suppose say I'm having an app in my mobile. Suppose it is for navigation purpose. If it should help me only in my navigation purpose. Why it should have access to my contacts and then the gallery? So we should always have this safety measure so that we are not any victim of any of these things. So some of the mitigation strategy, and then what are the Kaspersky Lab suggested the technologies are there. You can just go through them. I'll just share the slides after the talk. That has been very much in changed during this recent time is the DDoS attacks. So DDoS is the distributed denial of service attack. What has been happened in this attack is people from the various sources are trying to attack these resources provided by the companies remotely and make sure that these resources are not available to the common people easily. On the other hand, the companies will think that the people are accessing the resources, whereas they're not accessing the actual resources. They're trying to block the actual persons from accessing those resources. So what we can use as the security controls to functions and then digital signatures. Like maybe in the other sessions, they may give you an overview of what exactly these things are. Like hash functions are quite simple. You will take a hash of a value and store it. So if someone takes at a later instance, so that hash value will be different. So if you're like keen on how know how to work, like there is a web page on MD5 algorithm, you can download it and take an hash value, and then you can take the hash value of two files and compare whether they are the same or, and then the digital signatures, secured socket layers, and the transport layer, SSL and TSL protocols, and HTTPS connections, digital certificates, steganography, and then the end-to-end encryption. Like nowadays, what WhatsApp has been using is the end-to-end encryption, but still the people will use the packet sniffing and other technologies wherein they can learn from the content of the encrypted data. So those two things are there. Like as I told, it's a game. Over a period of time, it may evolve, new things may come, right? So to just give an overview of encryption, encryption is a process based on the mathematical algorithm, so that makes the information hidden or secret. So the encrypted or non-encrypted text or the data is called as a plain text, or generally that is the plain data, and the encrypted data is called as the ciphertext or the secret text, right? So if you want to have an end-to-end encryption, what it will do is now two devices are there, A and B. If I want to communicate with A and B, I will take the key of the B and then encrypt it and send it, so that the B will decrypt it on his own. So like this it will work. Now the WhatsApp will uses this end-to-end encryption technology, wherein like both the users A and B will agree upon a set of keys. So if A is sending a data to B, it will encrypt it and send it, and the B will decrypt it and use it. At the same time, the B will encrypt it and send it, and the A will decrypt it and use it. Like that is having another challenge. Like suppose say if the forensics challenge, like if anyone wants to know the content in the time of the crime investigation or something, then how we can make sure. It happened with one of the companies like Apple. They were denying to provide any of the data that happened, that data communication that has happened between two parties, or like a person who has a phone as a witness. So if that has been encrypted, there is no way to get the data back. So these are all the legal issues that are associated with the end-to-end encryption. Over a period of time, some solution do come for this thing also. Like now in the present scenario, this end-to-end encryption seems promising to provide some of the solutions against these attacks, right? So there are three states of data in actually, that is data in motion, that is data at rest, and data in use. So the data in motion is like, that is the data that has been transmitted over a wireless or 3G, 4G or whatever. So data at rest is in storage on your desktop or laptop or on IoT devices or on your pen drives or hard disk. And then data in use is the process of being generated, updated, erased or viewed. So like what are the things that can be used to make sure? So in the case of data in motion, what we can do is we can use the VPNs, that is use of a secure sockets layer and then a VPN connection, so that this can affect, the attackers cannot affect the data, because it will be in the form of a tunnel, wherein in a form of a secure tunnel in which the data has been transmitted. So that if we are having such an VPN, we can make sure that some of these things are not been compromised, and also this packet sniffers, man-in-the-middle attacks can be avoided, right? So these are some of the strategies that can be used for building an encryption, like data classification, what kind of data it is, and do we require any encryption or non-encryption, and then how will be the key management has to be managed, like if multiple people are there, what kind of key revocation schemes can be used. All those we can work it out at a greater detail based on the applications, and also the key lengths, and all those things will depend on the application in which we are going to have these things, like access control, and then what are the things. So as I told you before, like what can be provided for the data at rest, right? So one is the full disk encryption technique, full disk encryption with pre-boot authentication, hardware security models, and then encrypted file systems, file and folder encryption. So these are some of the techniques that can be employed for the data at rest. So data in motion, as I discussed earlier, we can have an virtual private network, VPNs, or secure socket cells or secure cell communications to have it. So, but the data, like another thing for the data communication or the end-to-end encryption, what we can have is a symmetric and asymmetric key crypto system, wherein if you are having a plain text, we will use an key and then combine it and give it in the form of a ciphertext that is not human readable, or machine will also try to get some understanding over that, and then decrypt it at the receiver side with using the suitable keys. So there are two ways in this case. In the case of a symmetric key crypto system, what both the parties, that is the sender and receiver, will agree upon a key, and then they will use that key to encrypt and then decrypt it. Whether it is the case of the asymmetric key crypto system, or also called as a public key crypto system, what the sender will use is, like, he will use the public key of the receiver and then send the data by encrypting it. And at the receiver, he will use its private key and then decrypt it. For example, if you are using our day-to-day ATM machines or transaction cards and all those things, will follow this asymmetric key crypto systems. Like symmetric encryption, some example is the WinZip implementation, that encryption method that uses the 256-bit AES or 128-bit AES, all those things. And some of the examples of the asymmetric key encryptions are like the Diffie-Hellman, elliptic curve crypto system, RSA. One of the widely used is the RSA. You might have heard of all these things. So these will be there in the core of all these technologies, the mathematical things, right? So these are all some of the systems or the devices that are exposed to attacks that we need to overcome them, right? So like data remanence controls, like clearing, overwriting, storing, destruction, decoding, all these things we need to avoid. So data privacy, what we can do is we can use the pseudo anonymization, and then the tokenization. So these are the three ways wherein we can have the data privacy as well. Anonymization in the sense, the data should not be like from the data, we should not be able to identify the person who is behind that. And tokenization, what we can do is we can assign some of the tokens to the data. So whenever we require it, we can access it. And then the pseudo anonymization is like partially we have anonymized the data. So these are some of the techniques that can be used for the data privacy. And then this is again how this ideas can be used. And these are what are the vulnerability scanning techniques, all these things we can use to overcome. And one of the major ways we need to overcome is the penetration testing, wherein people will try to penetrate our machine without our knowledge and then try to sniff or try to remotely monitor our work which are having on our computer. So these things we need to overcome. One of the popular penetration techniques are if you can use a Metasploitable. There is one tool is there that you can learn and identify how we can mitigate some of these attacks that are there. Okay, so how we can tackle some of these cyber crimes? So use passwords that are difficult to guess, and also like don't use the same password on all the websites, and also to the extent possible avoid the public Wi-Fi. So don't think that if you get some free Wi-Fi we should access the internet. So because that may capture the content on our phones, that is the another problem. And then the ignore and delete the unknown phishing mails. Don't try to open any of the mails that we are not comfortable with. And also like use the suitable antivirus software, and also use the multifold authentication system, right? So with these things, like I will conclude my session. So if there are any questions or something, like please let me know. Thank you.
Participants are requested to ask if you have any doubts or any questions to Dr. Pavamma sir.
We have 10 minutes discussions, please. The participants may ask the resource person some doubts, whatever you have, based upon the messages, whatever he has given.
Please unmute yourself and you can ask. So if you don't have any queries, shall we wind up the session? Participants, please respond.
Okay, please, Professor Firoz, we may wind up.
Okay. So I would like to thank Dr. Pawaman sir for giving a wonderful session, especially as an introduction. And also he has covered a lot of areas and also the most relevant related matters, the security concerns. So it was one fabulous sessions and he has mentioned, covered almost all the areas and as a person you have doubts. So I would like to thank Pawaman sir for taking wonderful sessions and thank you sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you for providing an opportunity to talk to all the participants. Hopefully, we'll meet in person in the near future. Yeah, thank you. See you all. Thank you.
Sir, could you please share your PowerPoint so that the participants can have a look up after that?
Yeah, sure, sir. I'll send you in a while.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, for the participants, we have the next session starting at 11:45 a.m. with Engineer Manishankar from Mercedes-Benz. So we'll join again at 11:40 a.m. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, yes.
Sir, what about the attendance of this session?
Attendance, the Google form will be shared in the next section for the forenoon sessions, and the afternoon sessions will be under during that section number 3.
Okay, thank you very much.
So all are requested to join by 11:40. Thank you.